Hello, everybody. Welcome on back to Fantasy Football Futures. Today is Tuesday, November 9th, 2021, coming off of Week 9 Fantasy Football. I'm Tyler here with Tim.
How's it going?
And we are going to do some of the booms and busts from this past week. Really around the league, there's not much going on right now. There's just a couple people who are dinged up. No major injuries from this past weekend, which is kind of nice, refreshing. The biggest news last week, I know we didn't do anything last week, just taking a little break, was King Henry being out for the year.
I would say going into this week, one thing to look at is they say Robinson is more likely going to be playing.
James Robinson, yeah.
James Robinson.
That's always good. And then you're looking at like Hopkins being
day-to-day.
Yeah, and Murray was also dinged up, so there's a lot going on there. But really outside that, nobody's really majorly hurt. McCaffrey made his return. So we'll go ahead and look on here. And start some of the booms and busts over the last week here. Really kind of a weird week in fantasy again. I feel like teams right now are either we're having like really highs or just really low weeks from everybody.
I feel like in the AFC, no one's that dominant team. You could say the Titans, but the Titans just lost their best player. So
and like
it's very weird.
You look at like A.J. Brown, who's their best player right now. He put up 9-10 points last week. So it really depends on who you're playing, the matchups, and then kind of just it's going week by week because you can have a guy who's been going off and then he's just shutting down like Tyree Kill kind of guy. So it's just been a weird week right now in fantasy. And I feel like the last couple of weeks have been like this. They've been a little down. Scores have been lower. Unless you're just having like the 5 or 6 guys that are going off each week. You're just fighting out wins as best you can. So hopefully that changes here. But let's go ahead and start with some of the booms for the week, starting at quarterback. Number one quarterback this week for PPR was Lamar Jackson. He had 32 points. He had 120 rush yards, 266 passing yards with 3 touchdowns. And this was against the Minnesota Vikings. They had to come back and win this game late. To me, Lamar Jackson, this is just what he can do. This is why you play him week in and week out. Dynamic threat. Having 3 passing touchdowns and then adding 120 rushing yards. You're pretty much playing a running back that can also throw the ball. So
yeah, you're going to see him being a top 5 quarterback this year in fantasy just because of the pass and the run. He's starting to throw over around 250 yards a game now, really throwing the ball around. So throwing more touchdowns and then running the ball as well. Has more with Bateman coming in there. He's definitely throwing the ball more. So I'm starting Lamar Jackson every week. Not surprised he's number one, especially when maybe a couple other quarterbacks had some down weeks. He's going to take that number one role against the Vikings defense for sure.
And that's why I think adding Bateman, like you talked about, is only going to help him. Bateman, they were talking about him in the game. I do have Bateman on the team, and it's nice. He has had 14 receptions, and all 14 of them have pretty much been first downs until that game. So he's a first-down giving machine, someone Lamar looks to, and I think it only helps adding him. And then you get Sammy Watkins back here soon, Mark Andrews, and then Marquise Brown returning to himself. So I see a lot more weeks like this in Lamar's future, and I feel like the Ravens they don't thrive until they're down 20 points or something.
That's really true.
So big week for him. That's the first boom of the week. Second boom of the week was Justin Herbert. He had 31.64 points, 356 yards passing, 2 touchdowns through the air. He did have 14 rush yards with 1 touchdown on the ground. And it's nice to see Justin Herbert get back to himself after 2 down weeks. Chargers, I still think they don't look as good as what they were showing in the first 4 weeks of the season, but it's definitely going up from here for the Chargers and Justin Herbert.
Yeah, it was good to see him come back here. Very bad last 2 weeks. Was getting a little bit worried. I've been big on the Chargers all year, and just nothing has been happening. I think what's starting to happen, though, is Keenan Allen starting to show he's that number one. Mike Williams taking a few steps back, and then it's just kind of using Eclair there. That Chargers defense is actually has been struggling.
Yeah,
now. So I think if you have Herbert, you're kind of a little bit happy for that because that makes Herbert have to throw the ball a lot more because the teams are staying in games because they can score points.
Yeah.
And so Herbert in the top 5, glad to see him back there, and I don't expect him to leave anytime soon.
Well, that's what we talked. You mentioned Keenan Allen being their top guy again. Something to keep an eye out for is Mike Williams has had a knee injury he's been dealing with, but they're not really saying anything about it, and you're not really sure what's going on with it. So it's definitely something to keep an eye out for, especially if you're a Keenan Allen holder. You saw the first 4 or 5 weeks, Mike Williams was dominant in every game, and Keenan Allen wasn't getting what you wanted. But now over the last 2 games, he's averaged, I think, he had 12 catches this last game, and then I think he had 8 catches last week. So something good for him, and the Chargers are only going to go up. Eclair kind of went down this week, but that's a different thing. But like you're saying,
and also, if you play daily fantasy, I think this week is the first week Keenan Allen is priced higher than Mike Williams since week 2 or 3.
Yeah, probably just because of the last 2 weeks, and I feel like people.
And Justin Herbert's also been using those tight ends a lot too. I can't think of the other one. His name, I think it's besides Cook. I'll try to think of it, but I've seen him have some couple big catches down the end.
So he's getting weapons, and he's finally getting back into the rhythm we saw at the beginning of the year. The third guy here is kind of, I think, a shocker for a lot of people. Matt Ryan, 28.52 points. He had 343 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, along with 1 rushing touchdown. And what really boosted him up, along with Justin Herbert, is getting that rushing touchdown at 6 points instead of just 4, especially for our league. And I know some add 6 and 6, so it kind of cancels out. But big week out of him, especially not having their number 1, Calvin Ridley. Kyle Pitts has come onto the scene. Cordero Patterson continues to do what Cordero Patterson was doing. So, to me, this is kind of a shocker with Atlanta playing a good New Orleans Saints defense that gave Tom Brady fits last week. But Matt Ryan came out, and I feel like he's quietly had a solid year for fantasy quarterbacks.
That's the thing. I think he's wide receiver 16 in our league.
Quarterback 16?
Yeah, quarterback 16.
Yeah.
I said wide receiver. But anyways, he had a really bad week last week against the Panthers. He was coming off a bye, and he was looking good. Everyone's kind of talking about him. They kind of came back and just laid a dud last week. I was really happy to see him bounce back. His main target was, or not, who scored a lot of the points was Zach. I can't pronounce his name. Zacchaeus?
Oh, Zafiq.
That guy.
Yeah, I don't know.
But anyways, he's like the wide receiver 2 or 3, and had 2 touchdowns on just 3 catches. So, if you have Kyle Pitts or if you have Cordell Patterson, you are hoping those go to him. But good for Matt Ryan to have a bounce back week this week.
And that's what, especially with Russell Gage, you were looking to think for him to be the next guy up. But like you said, it wasn't him. It was Zacchaeus.
There you go.
So I couldn't really read it on your screen. So he's coming off a big week, and like I said, 16, where he really hasn't had his full weapons for a while. Kyle Pitts, only being a rookie, takes time to develop and get used to the speed and everything of the game. So I'm interested to see what it's going to look like with Matt Ryan and the Falcons down the road. But that rounds out the 3 booms, the biggest performances from quarterbacks this week. Let's go ahead and move into some of the running backs for this week. And I think the number 1 overall running back is going to be a shocker. James Conner with the Cardinals. Now, Chase Edmonds went out early with a high ankle sprain, which is what they said. He's also day to day. But James Conner took advantage of everything. 42.3 points in PPR, 96 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns, 77 receiving yards with a touchdown through the air as well. So he racked up 3 touchdowns. And I'm almost positive he is now the leading touchdown scorer in the NFL this year.
I believe he is.
So kind of a surprise guy here, thinking with the Cardinals how good Chase Edmonds looked last year. You would only think that it continue to go up there for Chase Edmonds, but it's kind of looking like the James Conner show's taking over down there.
Yeah, he's always been that guy in the red zone all year. If you're a Chase Edmonds owner, it's just been hard to watch because Chase Edmonds actually has had a good year. He's been catching the ball, running the ball in that offense. But then when you get into that red zone, James Conner has taken over, and now Chase Edmonds got hurt, and you see what James Conner is going to do. I know that Cardinals offense is really beat up. They had Colt McCoy, so they wanted to establish the run game. I don't expect him to get 3 touchdowns a game.
No.
But James Conner is a must-start in your lineup.
Well, that's why I think if Edmonds is out, you have to insert Conner because, one, the Cardinals' offense is so explosive. They put up points. And when they get in that 10 yards or less, they're looking at Conner to pound the ball in. So, to me, I think you have to play him because of the fact that, I know he might be touchdown dependent, but he can do things now in the red zone that he wasn't maybe getting full opportunity, and it's looking like he might be that lead back. And so that's something to keep an eye out there for. With James Conner and the Cardinals, huge performance by him. I'm curious to see what he's going to look like in the next couple weeks. Then we got number 2 here on a Thursday night was Jonathan Taylor, put up 37 points, 172 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns, 28 receiving yards. Kind of solidifying himself as the number 1 back. I know Nyheim Hines also had a good game, but Jonathan Taylor to me is clear-cut number 1 in Indy, and it's no doubt anymore. I think he showed that he is capable of being a top 5 running back in the league.
Yeah, he's actually number 2 overall in PPR for running backs. Number 11 overall, just in general in fantasy. This is what kind of projected at the beginning of the season. I didn't know how the Colts were going to play him and if Hines was going to be like a 50-50 or 60-40. But Taylor, when he's in the game, he is getting the ball and he's scoring. He's been getting about 70% of snap count. Earlier in the year it was about 50. And I think it might have been.
That's what I say. I don't know
if
like week 3 or 4, it's when he finally started to see that number 1 role really.
And so starting at week 4, he's had a touchdown every game. 1-1-2, 1-1-2. He's getting in the end zone. He's catching. He's had at least 2 catches every single game since week 4, and so he's an awesome running back. This is what I projected, and I'm glad to see him get the ball because he's a beast.
That's what I feel like we both kind of thought he could easily do this.
Yeah. What
kept him out of my early prediction was just the fact that we were unsure what it was going to look like with Hines back there. But I think it's shown that they're making him the number 1 guy, and that's just the way it's going to be in Indy. And I think it's a great decision, just kind of leaning on one guy and then using Hines as like a spell back, kind of throw in a different pass, a little change of pace kind of thing. But to me, I think Jonathan Taylor is a clear-cut number 1, and he's someone you want to keep in your lineup each week. So
yeah, 100%. Also, he's making Carson Wentz look better.
Yes.
Ever since Jonathan Taylor kind of took over, Wentz has been a pretty good quarterback for fantasy and for the Colts. Yep. I know the Titans are taking away that division, but if you see the Colts maybe get into that wild card position, and if that defense can kind of figure it out just a little bit more,
like what they were last year,
figure it out, that'd be. I'm not saying they're going to do any damage, but they could be a little bit of a scary team with Taylor in the backfield.
Could be like Titans 2 years ago where they just relied on Henry. Yep. Made Tannehill look really good too. So to me, it's all in there. Bunch of things going on here. Then our last guy is Nick Chubb, kind of returning to his old self after 2 weeks of being out. He's come back 33.3 points, 137 rush yards, 2 touchdowns, 26 receiving yards. Real shame, though, he's out this week with COVID. I feel like the COVID bug has just been huge the last couple weeks. But Nick Chubb, I think you're seeing what he could be without a guy like Kareem Hunt in there.
Yeah, I'm not surprised at all. When you give him the ball, he's going to do good. Just really breaks away. It's going to be interesting since he's out now. And I guess what's his name?
Dearness Johnson.
Dearness Johnson is going to take over that role. He's proven that he can do it too and take the next step.
Wow.
Browns just look so much better without Odell. Cleared waivers today. He's a free agent. Browns don't have to worry about him. And without him, the Browns look good. You just got to run it through Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb needs the ball a lot. Or even whoever running back's back there.
When Hunt gets back, just let them lead the show and get play action set up. Baker Mayfield slow down the game for him. To me, I just feel like Nick Chubb, this is what you can expect anytime from him. You're benefiting a lot now with Kareem Hunt being out, and I don't know when he's supposed to be back.
I don't know if he's vaccinated or not. I have not heard if he's vaccinated.
Chubb, I don't. Yeah, it just came out today that he was out with COVID. So something to keep an eye out for with him.
He is vaccinated, so he is actually he has to have 2 straight negative tests at least 24 hours apart. So not 100% out this week, but we'll see. Probably out. So most of the time, people that have been testing positive and vaccinated, they've been out on Sunday.
So something to keep an eye out for there. That rounds out the running backs for this week. Big week. I feel like running backs put up either really big points or kind of no points.
Yep.
There wasn't really a whole lot in between here. But let's go ahead and run over to the booms of the wide receivers here, which is led by 2 rookies this week. Huge numbers for the first guy here, Elijah Moore with the New York Jets, 27.4 points, 7 catches, 84 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns against Colts. This was with Mike White being out and their third quarterback, I think, Jackson. I forget his first name.
Johnson.
Yeah. So he played
Josh Johnson.
Josh Johnson. That's what I thought it was. Josh Jackson. That's the different guy. Josh Johnson played very well against the Colts. Elijah Moore was a benefactor a lot. And I think it had a lot to do with Corey Davis being out as well. But this offense just looks smooth without Zach Wilson right now. So I don't know. I'm curious to see if this is something maybe Elijah Moore is finally getting into a rhythm. I know he's had 2 solid last 2 games, but it's just something to see what do you think he's going to look like in the next couple weeks.
Yeah, so his first time actually scoring a touchdown, I believe, all year. Week 7 he had a rushing touchdown, but the first 2 receiving touchdowns he's had all year. Yeah, I think the past 3 weeks he's had at least 6 targets. Looks like they're trying to throw him the ball more. Without Zach Wilson, the Jets just look like they're trying to simplify everything. And I think that's what they probably should have done with Zach Wilson, but they're trying to make Zach Wilson do everything, like kind of open him up a little bit. But when he gets back, maybe they need to go back to what they're doing with Mike White and with Johnson, just keeping everything simple. Throw him the ball and run the ball.
Well, that's what I feel like they're doing, a lot more quick out
throws,
routes, getting everything, just getting like Mike White and Josh Johnson in a rhythm just by completing the ball quickly, getting it out, which I feel like we see Zach Taylor waiting a lot and trying to take huge shots with him, which at rookie level, you just got to let him slowly develop. He needs to see himself get in a rhythm. So I think it's big there with that, and I'm curious to see. I think Zach Wilson should be inserted back in the lineup when he comes back, but I'll be interested to see what's going to happen, how long they keep him out now. Maybe give him a week or 2 to rest. But Elijah Morris, I think, someone to keep an eye out for, and I'm sure he's available in a lot of leagues too. Mm-hmm. So why not go pick him up, hold him, just see maybe he develops more into that number 1 explosive guy that we both kind of thought he would be at the beginning of the season. So he's our number 1 here. The number 2 rookie that led the week in Boom's performances was Devonte Smith.
Your guy.
22.6 points, 5 catches, 116 yards, 1 touchdown. And no joke, this guy goes off every single week. I do not play him. But when I do play him, so he's had 3 solid weeks. Every single week he's not been in my lineup.
Yeah, I'll just start from week 1. 19 for fantasy points. 19,
didn't play
3, 5.
Played him.
And then 19, 14.
Didn't play him. I played him for the 14 one.
And then 5, then 11, then 2, then 22.
Yep. Had all those, and then the 22, of course. I don't know. Devonta Smith, to me, Jalen Hurts is a very bad quarterback, but a very good fantasy quarterback.
Yeah.
Because of his legs and what he can do. But I just feel like they don't design anything to Devonta Smith. And it's hard. He's so good, and this is what he can do. He had 5 catches, 116 yards. So that means he's doing a lot with the ball after.
Yep.
And that's what you draft a guy like that for high. The one thing I do like about Devonta Smith is if you look at his schedule the remaining of the year, besides the bye in week 12 or 13. 14. A lot of bad defenses. A lot of early weeks he played solid defenses. And now we're coming up to kind of the weaker core. So I'm interested to see, is Jalen Hurts and his production going to go up, or is it going to kind of mellow out and we'll continue to see that 1 to 2 range here.
Yeah, so the only good defense against the pass remaining is Week 13 against the Jets, but it's if you have him in the playoffs, he has a great matchup. Plays Washington twice and the Giants in your playoff matchup, and then before the bye, he plays the Broncos, Saints, and Giants, who are actually giving up a good amount of passing yards. So it's looking really good for him. Hopefully, he kind of keeps going. He stops this roller coaster ride for fantasy.
That's what I'm interested to see what he's going to look like, how it's going to look down the road with him. But yeah, he's definitely got to keep an eye out for. Good to see them. I feel like this is kind of where we're at that point. Week 10 now, you're going to see these rookies kind of starting to become themselves a little bit more. Jamar Chase had the early lead. Now I think you're going to start seeing some of these guys develop a little later, especially wide receiver position. I'm thinking like Najee.
Him and Waddle hasn't done a whole lot, but Waddle's getting a lot of targets in that offense. So I think if Tua comes, especially with Tua, Tua really likes Waddle. Mm-hmm. So if Waddle can get something going, I think he'd be up there as well with them.
Yeah. So that's what we've seen Waddle. He's topped this list a couple times. So it's going to be interesting to see what kind of rookies start doing. I think this is where you hold them and you're just hoping that it pays off for holding them so long. Then the number 3 boom receiver for this week was Keenan Allen, 22.4 points, 12 catches, 104 yards. Just couldn't get in the end zone, but huge week out of Keenan Allen. This is kind of what we thought. You thought you were going to get out of him in the 3rd, 4th round. But it's nice to see that, and it's always going to be interesting to see how does Mike Williams, this knee injury, linger, affect him? So, Keenan Allen had a big week here.
Yeah, like we said, we talked about earlier, Keenan Allen's just that number 1 wide receiver now. So, Mike Williams is a good number 2 if he can stay healthy. It'd be a very good duo punch. But Keenan Allen, I know people were kind of questioning at the beginning. Keenan Allen's that number 1 wide receiver for them.
So, that rounds out our booms for wide receiver. Let's move to tight ends here. And the number 1 tight end for this week was Pat Friarmute, 21.3 points, 5 receptions, 43 yards, 2 touchdowns. I know we had one buddy who took him in the 11th round instead of waiting till the last round, but he's making us all look stupid. Pat Friarmute, I think, has worked his way into that red zone threat for the Steelers.
Yeah, Ebron's out, but even when Ebron comes back, I don't see it. No. I don't see him slowing down. Pat Friarmute is really just when you're in that end zone, the red zone, Big Ben's looking for him every time. It's starting to kind of hurt a little bit of Claypool and Deontay Johnson there, but between Najee and Friarmute, that's who's scoring touchdowns for the Steelers right now. And so I would keep please fit number 15 tight end. I can see by the end of the year he'll end up in that top 10, that top 7 area.
I think you're going to see kind of a Robert Tonyan type of touchdown dependent guy, but probably score a touchdown almost every week.
I think had 11, 12 touchdowns last year, and I can see at the end of the year Friarmute doing the same thing.
Yeah, up there. So he's definitely a guy. I think if he's available, which it's up in the air if he would be. Tight ends, I feel like have a surprisingly well year overall for the tight ends from what we've seen in the past. But yeah, he's definitely up there and somebody to keep an eye out for, especially with the Steelers who look 100 times better than what we saw like week 1 and week 2. Now they still don't look great, but Ben doesn't look great. But I would take a guy who's a red zone threat, especially tight end. If you can get a guy who can get 3 catches and a touchdown, take that any week with 1.
Yep.
So that's our first one. Second one, first week back off the IR, George Kettle, 20.1 points. 6 receptions, 101 yards, 1 touchdown. It's nice to see him come back, step into the role like we've known to see him as one of those top 3 guys that we've talked about since week 1.
Yeah, hopefully it's not too late, though. The 49ers team does not look good.
No.
If Kittle can stay healthy, I think Jimmy G really likes to depend on him. He's kind of going back and forth, starting getting Ayuk involved a little bit more. So it's kind of taken away from Samuel, but him to have to throw the ball to Kittle. They're down a lot lately. Usually the 49ers like to run the ball first, but from how much they get down so early when they're having to pass the ball, Kittle's a great play. You see in the top 4, it went Friarmute, then it goes Kettle, Kelsey, Waller. Just like we thought it only took 10 weeks for this to happen once.
Yeah, you throw Friarmute, then that's what we thought it would be each week. And Waller obviously being a benefactor of what's going on past week with Ruggs, but George Kittle here, number 2. Good to see him back. I think you're going to continue to see this the rest of the year. The biggest concern is, can he stay healthy? Can he stay on the field? So that's something to keep an eye out for. Number 3 this week was Travis Kelsey. No surprise. He's always going to be within the top 3. 17.8 points, 5 receptions, 68 yards, 1 touchdown. Still down for Travis Kelsey, I feel like, these numbers that he's seen. But it has a lot to do. The Chiefs just don't look good.
Nope. The Green Bay's defense really stopped in. Kelsey had a good game, but then that's when Tyreek Hill doesn't have a good game. So the Chiefs are usually when you have Kelsey and Tyreek having a game. But now it's if Hill has a good game, you're going to see Kelsey at the bottom. If Kelsey's in the top, Hill's probably going to be at the bottom.
But they just don't look right at all. So Chiefs in general, up and down year. This year should have probably lost to the Packers if we're looking at it. If
Aaron Rodgers is playing,
that game's not close. I don't think so. They got a win, which is what they needed. But yeah, so Travis Kelsey rounds out our booms for the tight ends this week, and then let's go ahead and move into some of the busts. Then I feel like you could name a lot of people here this week. A lot of people in your leagues probably underperformed. Starting with the one quarterback who's probably been one of the more dynamic ones outside of Lamar. Josh Allen, Bills. Terrible week for him. I think he only put up like 6 points. Struggled. He threw a pick, fumble. He got sacked a lot. The Bills lost to the Jaguars. Weird game. Just a weird game overall, then a weird game from Josh Allen as well. But the other Josh Allen had a great game.
Yeah, I really don't know what to say about this. Because the Bills have looked so good at certain times, and they've just looked so bad. I just don't know if they came to this game, this thing was just going to be an easy game, and then when they were starting it down, we're like, oh crap, like we need to throw the ball, and then it was just like too late. I don't really know what's going on with them. Zach Moss got hurt, so they couldn't really run the ball. I don't think they really like Singletary.
No,
I think that's when they tried to pass the ball, and I think it was a little bit too late.
That's what Singletary, I feel like, is not what they want in the QB, or not QB. Running back, so it's just what you're going to see each week. My second guy here that I have for this past week for bus was Patrick Mahomes with the Chiefs. Just not being Patrick Mahomes like we've seen in the past. He finished with 10.4 points, 166 pass yards, 1 passing touchdown. And that was it. That's all we saw out of Patrick Mahomes. For a guy who's $500 million man, you kind of expect a lot more out of him.
Yeah, especially against a Green Bay defense who there's been a couple quarterbacks that are all over them. And I think Alexander's back for them, right, for the Packers? Or is he still out?
I thought he was still out.
I thought he was still out too, and I just don't know what to say. He's still the number 6 quarterback in fantasy right now, but that's starting to look more down and down. He's had 10, 14, 7 the past 3 weeks. And it doesn't get much easier. He goes at Raiders, first the Cowboys, bye, first the Broncos, then Raiders again. And so it's not getting easier for him. They need to figure it out or they're not making the playoffs. It's pretty much easy as that.
Well, that's what... Are you trading for Patrick Mahomes?
I'm not trading for Patrick Mahomes. If I have Patrick Mahomes...
What if someone's so low on him? Like, they're like, here, take this and just give me, like, Deontay Johnson. Would you take that trade?
Honestly, probably not either because I think I don't want Mahomes, but at the same time, at that potential where you could get a 40-50 game out of Mahomes, I think it's still there. It's one of those things if you're just sitting there waiting, you're not want to trade him, but at the same time, he could stay like this and you could miss the playoffs or lose a playoff game because you have Patrick Mahomes and you're too big and too
When's their bye week?
In week 13.
Is it week 13? So you have a long...
Week 12, sorry.
Okay, so you got at least 2 weeks here. Something to see maybe if it would turn around then, but I'm not sure if I would do that either. So he rounds out number 2 here. Number 3, I forgot about one, Joe Burrow. I put Derek Carr here. Derek Carr, I put him up there because I played the Giants, and just not a great week out. Derek Carr, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. But Joe Burrow against the Browns, after a dud game last week, losing to the Jets, I thought they were going to come out firing, but I should have known. I was talking to somebody before, talking about betting and everything, and I feel like Bengals are going to come out, and he goes, well, I think the Browns are going to come out and win because, they want to prove Odell wrong and everything. Should have been on that side, but Browns look great. Joe Burrow struggled this week.
No
I feel like he's just not getting.
touchdowns.
There's just no pressure. Like, there's too much pressure on him right now to throw the ball when he's dropping back.
Yep.
He had two interceptions, no touchdowns. So,
Yeah.
bad week out of Joe.
Yeah, we overreacted with the Bengals a little bit. I think they're a good team, and I think their future looks good, but that offensive line needs to get better before we really start thinking how good of a team that is.
We overreacted, but I think at the same time, it's like they have a lot of weapons and they're fully capable of being a great team. It's just they're not performing well. So that's our last bust for the quarterbacks for this week. Hopefully they kind of turn around, especially these are all top-tier guys that you want. To see this is not great. Number one running back, Aaron Jones, 5.2 points this week in fantasy. He had 53 rushing yards, no receiving yards, and no receptions.
Yeah, I think this is just a case of having Jordan Love
and A.J.
Dillon.
Because you're looking at a bad Kansas City team. You're looking for high points here.
Yep.
I feel like Aaron Jones is kind of, from where he's been drafted, he's very underperforming.
He has these games. He's number 8 running back because he had 5 this week. The week before, 24. And then he goes 8, then 21. And then 15, 10, 17, then he has a 40-point game. So he's up and down a little bit here. It's really just kind of, I think what's happening too, like you said with A.J. Dillon coming in. A.J. Dillon's getting 4 to 5 yards per carry. And so that's making A.J. Dillon come in, play a little bit more. And that's going to take away from Aaron Jones. I think he's a good running back. I'm starting him every single week. But you'll see in games like this, especially when they're down, or when they need to get a couple yards for a run, A.J. Dillon comes in, or they're throwing the ball. So this is just, I would think Aaron Jones should have had a good game in this week just because they should have tried to run the ball. But for some reason, he just wasn't part of that game plan, or if he was, it just never worked out until Dillon was on the field.
Yeah, and that's what Aaron Jones, I feel like it's going to be, I'm interested to see how this backfield split's going to work. Are they going to keep splitting it? What's it going to look like? Aaron Jones might be someone they're on the outside. I know they just signed him, but maybe they're looking to use the pound game more with A.J. Dillon. He's a bigger body. Like I said, he gets those yards that you want. I'd pick up A.J. Dillon in a league just to have him because he eventually maybe might take over and he might become more of like that James Conner type that we're seeing this year. So someone to keep an eye out for, but he had another underperforming week. Especially for a guy with Jordan Love, you'd think they'd want to get running backs involved a lot more. So it was very alarming to see that. But that was our number one. Number 2 here is Daryl Henderson against Tennessee Titans. He had 8.8 points, 55 rush yards, 3 receiving yards with 3 receptions. Just bad week here by Daryl Henderson. I know he got dinged up in the game, which caused some of it, but at the same time, Titans defense, I think, has proven a lot of people that they're not as bad as what we thought they were. Yeah,
and it's honestly just keeps going back and forth with Daryl Henderson. He'll have a good week, then a bad week.
Yeah.
And it's very hard right now to find consistency with these running backs. I would say, like, you have Jonathan Taylor, Kamara, and there's not, I don't even know who else you would put in that. Maybe Dalvin Cook, but Dalvin Cook's been hurt and everything. But just consistency, and maybe even Joe Mixon, he's been pretty good lately. But consistency in playing and having good games because Daryl Henderson's on the field. But the last 2 weeks, who's their, I can't think of their backup running back. Sony Michel, he's been in the game more and running the ball. Especially, they'll have a random drive. Well, it's all Sony Michel the whole drive. And so, if you have Daryl Henderson, I'm a little worried about it, but I'm still starting him. He's still getting in the game 60 to 70% of the snaps. Just something to look out for having Sony back there to see how much more he runs the ball.
Yeah, it's just that up and down with him. Curious to see what's going to happen. I don't think you're in too much trouble. The Rams, they just didn't look great yesterday.
Yeah, it's just one of those games.
But they'll be back. I'm sure they'll have a huge week next week. I'd like to see him get him more involved in the pass game like they did a couple weeks ago. But we'll just see kind of what happens there. And then the last guy that I have here was, I skipped over a few, but Austin Eckler, I feel like at 11 points is very underwhelming for a guy that you would like to see score high, especially against a bad they're not terrible against the run, but Philadelphia's defense, you would expect him to kind of be up in the air, the high 20s here, or low 20s easily. He had 3 receptions, 23 receiving yards, 59 rush yards. I just feel like Austin Eckler's he's kind of like Aaron. He's not as bad as Aaron Jones with the up and down, but he's also having up and down games as well.
Yeah, he's been, after the bye, hasn't been that great. He's only actually had one game under 10 points, and that was week 6. But he is the running back number 3, and it's just because of all the catches he gets out of the backfield. But these past 2 weeks, it's been kind of a little bit interesting, and it's going to be interesting to see coming, because he plays against Minnesota and then Pittsburgh and then Denver, who actually done pretty good against the run. So see if they're going to throw the ball more to him, or if they're going to use more of like the Keenan Allen, Mike Williams kind of plays.
Yeah, that's what I'm interested to see. I know their offenses looked bad, but I don't know. It was kind of for this week, just shocker to see him down there.
Yep.
Especially against a Philly team. I'm sure he'll get utilized more against the better teams, but I'll see. I'm interested to see if they go to more of that passing game with Allen and Williams and Cook. And so that rounds out our running backs. Let's go ahead and move into wide receivers here. First wide receiver for the bus. It's kind of a group play with the Cowboys.
Yeah,
all of them. Schultz, everyone not named Malik Turner had a bad game, and Malik Turner only had a game because he caught 2 garbage time touchdowns. But CD, I think he had like 4 points. Marty had 6. Schultz maybe had 5 or 6.
Yep.
Just terrible week out of the Cowboys. They were down 30-0 at one point. So to me, it's just, I'm not really sure. I wouldn't worry too much about it, but it was a weird game for the Cowboys this week, especially the number 1 scoring offense.
Should Cooper rush? And the thing is, like, Dak, I think, got 20-something points. But besides those last 2 drives, I have no idea why he was still in the game.
I think they wanted momentum and kind of get him going into a consistency. But yeah, he literally had, I think it was like 5 to 8 points, yes. Going into that, and then he just started scoring touchdowns, which is nice if you're holding him. But yeah, so to me, there was just, that whole group was terrible. And it's not what you expect out of
the Cowboys,
the number 1 offense in the league right now. So
against a bad, they're not bad, but a Broncos team now just is looking like they're not going to make the playoffs or anything like that, and just losing to a team like that, very weird.
They just traded away their best player.
Yep.
So,
very weird.
But it was also kind of like the Odell situation. Maybe they're like, F you to Von Miller, we don't need you, we're better than that. So, I don't know, interested to see. Teddy Bridgewater looked good. The running backs for them looked really good. Devontae and Melvin Gordon got going this week. So, something to keep an eye out for there. Cowboys, I think, are usually, you're going to bounce back, no problem next week. And they're off their bye. I think it was Dak, a combination of Dak's first game. They were wearing the helmets with the stripes down them. That they're not their normal helmets, so it'll be interesting to see. So let's go ahead and move into our next one here. I feel like we find his name a lot on here lately. It's Tyree Kill.
Yep.
7.3 points for a guy you're drafting in the first, second round, and he's doing this. I feel like he's done this more than he's done big weeks.
The only thing is he's wide receiver number 2 in fantasy.
It's because he'll put up 50 points.
Yep. He's had a couple almost 30s, then he had that 50 and a 40. And so that makes him number 2. But yeah, he's only had 7, and it's just he's been pretty I don't know how you can say he's been disappointing, because he really hasn't been, but it's been all or nothing almost.
Yeah, it's true. He's either going off or he's doing nothing, which is kind of how the Chiefs' offense is right now. They're either, I wouldn't even say they're really going off. They haven't really had any big games where they're just scoring a bunch of points. So, just super disappointing week for me. Tyreek Hill, he only had 4 catches, 37 yards. I feel like they have to work on something getting him the ball more.
Mm-hmm.
He's the fastest human I've ever seen run on a football field, I feel like. And no matter where he gets the ball, he can take it to the house. So I feel like they got to work on their passing game. Andrew Reid's got to dial some more things up for him and get him involved more. So that is our number 2. Now, I skipped over a couple more because you got like Mike Williams, Claypool, Julio Jones on here. Thielen as well, Crowder. And then Jamar Chase, bad week. I think you could put.
You have a lot of top wide receivers that are high roster owned that had very
bad week. Deebo Samuel had a low week for him. Devontae Adams had a low week. Brown, low week. But the one guy I kind of want to talk about here a lot and just to see is DJ Moore with the Panthers. This guy was looking at wide receiver 3 to start the year. I'd say the first 4 or 5 weeks he was really doing his thing, going off. But we've seen over the last couple weeks, nothing really going on for the Panthers. I think DJ Moore is the best receiver on the team, and Sam Darnold has just been bad. The team's been bad. He had 7.6 points. Is this time you're worried trying to sell Darnold, or not Darnold, Moore, or are you going to hold on to Moore?
I would hold on to Moore. He's getting so many targets still.
Oh, he's still the guy.
It's the quarterback play. I'm almost fine with DJ Moore. I want to see PJ Walker in there. I want to see.
That's why I think if Darnold might not play this week, and because of his shoulder and everything, I think you might see an increase in all play with PJ Walker in there.
I think so too. I just want to see if it kind of happens the same. Then I'm just like, it might be too late to trade DJ Moore, or if you're like, it's just going to be a one-time thing. You're hoping for one big week and then getting rid of him, just selling high at that moment.
Yeah.
But if I'm DJ Moore, it looks so good at the beginning, and it's really fallen off since about week 4.
I feel like he can easily get back to what we were looking at and where he was at the beginning of the year. But to me, it's kind of a caution of concern. But I wouldn't worry too much about it. But it's something to keep an eye out for. And if maybe you can sell him higher or lower, it's worth the risk taking. So that rounds out our booms and busts for this week. Hopefully a better week in fantasy coming up. Hopefully more people start to catch a rhythm and get going. I just feel like we're in a null right now with everything, and there's nothing really going on. So that's something to keep an eye out for. Let's go ahead and slide into now. You want to do Thursday night football games?
Yep. Okay.
Thursday night game, kind of I think it's going to be one of the worst ones we've had. Last week we thought Colts-Jets was going to be kind of down. Ended up being not a bad game. Mm-hmm. Baltimore versus the Dolphins at Miami. Don't know if Tua's playing yet or not, but Ravens are minus 7.5. Over-under set at 46.5. What are your thoughts here on this one?
So I do not like taking away favorites in primetime. So I'm actually going Dolphins plus 7.5. I think if this is played on Sunday, this is a 9-10 point for the Ravens. But with it being 7.5, I think Vegas is trying to tell you something, and I think it's actually going to be a lot closer game than you think. And I know it kind of depends on if Tua or Brissett plays. I'm still going to go Dolphins plus 7.5, and I might do. Yeah, I'll start with that, and then maybe a little bit of a teaser of plus 13.5 and the over 40.5, something like that.
That's right. I've looked at this. I think maybe taking that over might be something I look at, because you're looking at Thursday night game, short week, less time to prepare. You're sore. They probably don't want to play a whole lot on Thursday, so I feel like more points can get scored on Thursday, or we might see low points. But I think we're looking at a Ravens team who comes out slow a lot of the time, and it takes a while to get them going, and the Dolphins team that kind of does the opposite. They come out a little bit better than they finish. Like they came out early, scored with Gaskin last week, and then you're looking at the Ravens now, who are notorious for let's get down early and then come back and make it a game. So I think I would take the over in this game at 46.5. I do like the Ravens to win the game outright, but like you said, prime time at home is always tough, especially being a Thursday night game too. I would probably take 7.5 here as well with the Dolphins. You would think this is a game you look at and you're like, oh, Ravens should cover this easily, but you're looking at it and they probably won't. So, I'm taking the over, and then Dolphins plus 7.5 here as well.
Awesome, and then so I'm just taking. I have one prop. Baltimore has been pretty good against wide receivers, but Waddle, since week 6, he's had over 5 receptions besides 1 against Buffalo. He had 11 targets that game, but only caught 4 of them. So I'm taking over 5.5 for Jalen Waddle, even money receptions.
I would take that as well because I feel like they're going to get the ball in his hands quick and often. What's Mike Kazuki's at right now? Receiving.
He's at over 4.5.
I would almost take that too.
Yep, I think they're going to throw they've been throwing the ball a lot, and I think even with Tua in there, if he plays, they like to throw the ball a lot with him. Let's see, Kazuki's since week, I guess 3 went 10, 5, 4, 8, 7, 3, 4. So he's been around that the whole time. He's getting seven targets about average.
And I feel like if they're going to want to stay in this game, they're going to have to utilize their best weapons in Kazuki and him.
And Baltimore has not been good against the tight end. If you remember, like the Bengals.
Conklin, Uzama, yep. So I like Mike Kazuki over that.
I like that too, yeah.
I like Mike Kazuki. His over-under receiving yards, too, is 52.5. That might be something you even think about taking here. But another one I was looking at maybe is Rashad Bateman, I think, is kind of getting more involved in the game. Mm-hmm. What's his over-under receptions?
It might not be on here. It is not added yet.
That's what I figured. So, that is something to keep an eye out for. I feel like he's getting more involved in the offense. It's only his 4th week back. And I feel like Lamar and his relationship's getting a lot better. So, I don't know. I feel like this game's going to be closer than what it should be on paper. And especially looking at Mike Kazuki, not Mike Kazuki, the Dolphins and the Ravens. Ravens come in starting slow. You never know what might happen. But, normal starts, Brown. Pretty much anybody for the Ravens you're going to start. What running back are you picking from with Freeman and Bell, if any?
Honestly, if I have to pick, I'm picking Freeman. Freeman's been looking like he's been getting a lot of those red zone touches. So, not who I would want to play, but now when you have all these injuries, these buys, someone that has a good chance of scoring a touchdown, and that's Freeman.
Yeah, it's not about who you want, it's about what you just need to do. So, that rounds out this episode of Fantasy Football Futures. That was our Boobs and Busts. We'll come back with a starts and fades for the week, and then we'll also do what that will include our college football picks, which hasn't been great for us lately. No picks in general have been great for us, so that's something to keep in our track. So we'll do that, and then we'll also come out with a little pick'em show, give you our locks, favorites, underdogs for the week. But other than that is all. You got anything else to add before we head on out? Make sure you check us out on everything. Facebook, social media, Twitter, Instagram, everything, TikTok. We haven't done much with that. But we're going to be a lot better at doing it. We got a lot more time on our hands now. But yeah, we appreciate everything. Check us out on everything else. But other than that, deuces.
See ya.